dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. A lot of topics that we're going to get into. First off, I got two clips I'm going to play. One from We Are Change, another one from AMTV. And both of them kind of have to do with Russia to a point. But the first one I'm going to play is from We Are Change, and this one's the lessons we can learn from Ukraine. So let me cue this up here. Okay, here we go.
Whenever they saw that turn, that mass kind of uprising of people saying we don't want corruption, all the neocons and all the money just came pouring in, and they made it possible. They openly supported this kind of revolution.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Hello, friends. James Corbett here in Acapulco, Mexico. This time joined by Luke Rudkowski of wearechange.org. I'm sure you all know him by now. And, of course, someone who concentrates on a lot of different issues. But as I understand, Luke, one of your main concentrations right now is Ukraine and what's happening there. Why is this so important at this particular moment?
I mean, right now, it's pretty much a proxy war between the U.S., EU, NATO, and Russia. There's a big standoff, and there's a lot of key players, and I think it's really important because we're either getting Western propaganda or Eastern propaganda. So it's really hard to really find out exactly what's happening in this very key, important European country because of all these influences and all these reportings that are contradicting each other. So I think it's very important to break down because this could seriously lead to very serious escalations, especially with Russia, that could possibly cause a war between these two global superpowers that are just ripping apart this country and creating mass suffering with so many people who are just stuck in the middle of this tug of war between these two major powers.
Well, let's break down the Western propaganda first, because it's one everyone is subjected to on a daily basis on CNN or what have you, where, of course, everything is framed as, is Putin going to attack? Will Putin invade? What's going to happen with Putin? And, of course, we see a lot of that propaganda, which neglects the Western side of this conflict. Tell us about some of those involvements and engagements that are starting to make this, that have made this entire conflict possible. Well,
of course. From the very beginning with the revolution in Kiev, we saw the USAD, the National Endowment for Democracy. We saw George Soros and some of his organizations that he's loosely affiliated with just throw a bunch of money and support all the neocons from the West. John McCain came running in as soon as people were against the corrupted government of Yanukovych. And of course, Yanukovych was corrupt. He was, but he was pro-Russia, and he implemented policies that were pro-Russia. Whenever they saw that turn, that mass kind of uprising of people saying we don't want corruption, all the neocons and all the money just came pouring in, and they made it possible. They openly supported this kind of revolution. With this revolution, we pretty much came back to another place, but now we have another corrupted individual, Poroshenko, which even according to WikiLeaks documents and those diplomatic cables is a corrupt official. But he's a corrupt official that has ties to the U.S. And, of course, that's going to fit in better because they want Ukraine to join the European Union. They want a closer connection with them. Ukraine is very important in so many different geographical aspects, but the main one, not only its vast amounts of farmland, but also its very close proximity to Russia. And if you look at all the bases, all the NATO U.S. bases around Russia, they are littered all over the place. So this would give the U.S. very key strategic locations very close, right on the border with Russia. And there's also a lot of consumer, also financial benefits, whether it's the IMF giving out the crack loans to this country and then rooting and robbing it blind, changing the laws within the country, which we see happening, making it very profitable for companies like Monsanto to come in, which they have. They just set up a new office in Ukraine. And now you see laws being changed saying that we can do genetically modified farming. Other people can come in and now buy up the land here. We see Poroshenko, who just came from the UAE, and he just cut a deal for arms with the UAE for defense. But in exchange for that, he's giving up economic opportunities for the UAE in Ukraine. So we're seeing just this country that was doing fine, doing good on its own. It's being sold to the highest bidders. You see all these influences coming in, helping create this revolution. And of course, they came back to the same corrupted politician, but now he's more likable to the corporate government, NATO, U.S. interests.
Well, you raise a couple of extremely important points there. First of all, there's the NATO encirclement of Russia generally, which Ukraine is obviously a part of, which is, I think, part of that key danger that you're talking about in the war scenario. But on top of that, you say about Ukraine being fine on its own. For the last couple decades, it's been ruled by oligarchs of one form or another, a lot of whom have been in bed with Russia and have sent a lot of the oil money and cut some oil deals for their own personal benefit, not for the benefit of the Ukrainian people, which I think is the neglected aspect from a lot of the alt media coverage of this. Yeah. So this is the Eastern propaganda kind of version of this. So what do we need to know about the ultimate solution to this? Because it seems that the ultimate solution can't be simply to give money and power back to these oligarchs. It has to be some way of returning power to the people of Ukraine to let them determine.
I said fine compared to what they're going through now. Their economy is destroyed. They have no energy in any way, shape, or form. The coal that they were supposed to be mining in that Donetsk region can't even be mined because of the war zones. The amounts of debt that they are indebted to Russia, especially when it comes to gas in the, $6 billion? They're never going to pay that off. So financially, these superpowers want, okay, you're going to be indebted to us and work with us. And then they're vying for that power. They're vying for that money. The ultimate.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. When we look at the issue with Russia, there's so many different angles that are being played out. And the propaganda coming from both sides, like Luke said, make it very difficult to know what the truth is and what the angle that is most likely to result from it. And I always go back to we need to really pay attention to what Russia and China and these other countries are doing to understand what our own country is doing. And when you look at oil, the petrodollar, gold, these countries have been hoarding gold, like Russia and China, even other countries, I believe, are, they have large amounts of gold. Um, when they have that and they have oil, it's been able to put them in a position where they more than likely could easily, um, you know, jump to a different currency for a petrodollar. It would not no longer be the U.S. dollar; that would be the petrodollar. And there was one report, I haven't been able to confirm it yet, but it was talking about Putin trying to nationalize the Rothschild Bank in Russia. Um, if anybody um, happens to come across the article, I don't even have the chat open, but if you have me on Skype, you can Skype it to me. Um, but even if that whole story is untrue, we understand that, with the gold and the oil, that puts them in a pretty good position. With the U.S., our currency is not backed by gold, silver, any precious metal. It has no backing other than you're willing to take it. And if these countries back their currency with gold, it puts them in a position a lot more secure than the U.S. And I believe that's why OPEC and the U.S. are definitely trying to get oil prices down. Not for us. This is a direct attack on the ability for these other countries to do a role reversal. And I think it's going to be very little success on it. And again, I go back to the gold. Um, how long will OPEC go along with this? How long will the U.S. go along with this? Enough to get China, Russia to, and remember, Russia and China don't need Europe for their transfer of oil. So, how long would they have to do it before you could start bleeding Russia and China of their gold to make them start having to sell off gold to keep their money afloat? And then, if you look, if that story turns out to be true, that Putin wants to nationalize a Rothschild bank and kick, the World Bank out of the country, basically what it is. Um, that just capitalizes on it. Where this is going, I think, is basically we are in a world war. And when you see all the things going on in the Middle East, we're fighting two different fronts here. We're fighting a financial front with Russia and China, basically, I believe. And we're fighting a front in the Middle East with radicals that are basically able to grow because they're able to use our presence there as a tool to recruit. And it's gotten so bad here in America that a lot of youth feel disenfranchised with society so much that they're willing to go over there and be a part of that. And they're being manipulated. They're finding out what it's really like. And it's an unfortunate thing that all of this is going on, and most Americans that haven't went along with our public policy, haven't went along with the foreign policy, haven't went along with our monetary policy, are the ones that are directly being hurt by this. Now I have one here from AMTV, US dollar rally. Putin reappears. So let me go ahead and play this.
Oh, sorry. John, Angela Merkel is looking for further integration of the Eurozone. There's a massive crisis. Do you think that's a smart idea?
Well, I don't myself prefer that as an alternative, but I think the European Union is now down to corner solutions, either the Chancellor's version of a much more integrated Europe, or the other corner is the breakup of the Eurozone. I think the latter is more likely, and in fact, in the case of Greece, I think is actually to their benefit to get out of the euro. But that's something the Europeans are going to have to work out. I think they ought to work it out on their own without support from the United States.
You know, if they go back to national currencies, if Greece leaves the Eurozone, won't that be a massive crisis? What does that mean for the financial markets?
Well, I think like everything else, there are difficulties that it would pose, but that doesn't mean that we should support the euro simply because it exists. They're the ones that created this. They had primarily political objectives when they did so. That objective is now in the process of failing, and I think they're going to have to bear the consequences of it. I'm not saying that because I'm not concerned about the Europeans, but because it was their project, and they should take responsibility for it. That's what democratically elected governments do.
Thanks. Before we get started, please check out our sponsor, Lear Capital. That's Lear Capital, the precious metals leader. Buy gold, buy silver, do it today. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is Monday, March 16, 2015, and the Federal Reserve will be releasing new information this week on Wednesday on whether or not Janet Yellen will be raising interest rates. Of course, rates haven't budged since the 2008-2009 collapse. Since then, the U.S. stock market has tripled. These new bubbles have been a brewing. And we're to see if there's any more or new linguistic gymnastics. This is what Mohammed El-Arian said earlier this morning. Coming from the Fed, will they keep the word patience or will they remove the word patience? A lot of this has to do with the strengthening of the U.S. dollar. We've had a very strong dollar rally in recent weeks. In fact, it's been the most aggressive rally in the shortest period of time that we've seen in almost half a century, in 40 years. While at the same time, the Federal Reserve has been keeping interest rates at zero and is soon about, we think, maybe, but not really sure if they're patient or not, going to bump interest rates, maybe 25 bips or 50 bips. The euro has launched their own version of quantitative easing in the European Union. So we've had the euro weakening and we've had the dollar rising, reaching a parity. Traders think, and we're pretty much already at parity, that the euro could even move below, depreciate against the U.S. dollar. So what does this all mean? What do you need to know about the strengthening dollar rally? And how has this played an effect in our economy and in global capital markets? Well, with a stronger dollar and the dollar appreciating in value, this has put pressure on commodities. It's one of the reasons oil has dropped. It's one of the reasons gold has dropped, which I personally see as a buying opportunity. The more the dollar rallies, the more the dollar continues to appreciate with these Federal Reserve shenanigans at the Federal Reserve with interest rates at zero, the more of an impact it's going to have on commodities, whether or not it's gold, whether or not it's oil or wheat or corn or anything else for that matter. You see, the Fed's going to have to put on the brakes at some point. They're going to have to begin to start to move interest rates. Otherwise, oil will continue to crash. Goldman Sachs might be right. We might see $30 in oil, which would be catastrophic for the U.S. economy and the global economy at large. Also, Vladimir Putin reappeared on Monday, today, laughed off his 10-day absence. Still has yet to explain why he was missing, gone MIA, kind of like Carmen Sandiego, for over 10 days. For those of you who think that's normal, it's not for a world leader with nuclear capability to go missing for 10 freaking days. Could you imagine if the President of the United States, Barack Obama, went missing for 10 days? You think people would want to know whether or not he was still alive or maybe potentially planning some kind of global event? Also, what's interesting is Putin is showing his force in Russia today on Monday with war exercises occurring right now, some 40,000 troops. He's putting his submarines on display. So all of this very interesting. All of this, of course, playing in to the U.S. dollar. The United States federal government in cahoots, our politicians here at the White House in the United States that represent the corporate interests in cahoots with other countries like Saudi Arabia to drive oil prices lower. In fact, I would argue the Federal Reserve has been behind the dollar rally. They've been behind this dollar strengthening to put pressure on oil prices, again, to affect countries like Mother Russia or Iran in this nuclear deal that Mr. Bolton called I'm paraphrasing a bit, but a total give up and a give in to the Iranian regime. All of a sudden, we're negotiating with them. At the same time, King of Bibi, Benjamin Netanyahu, is fighting for his life on Tuesday's election, says he could lose. It could be the end of an era, the end of King Bibi's reign. A lot of people pissed off of his speech that he gave to Congress just about a week ago with Iran, using a lot of biblical references, speaking to Iran's nuclear program, going and providing a counterpoint and going directly against and opposing the Obama administration. So again, I would watch the dollar. I would very much watch what the Federal Reserve has to say on Wednesday. How will they react? Are they going to do anything? Do they drop the word patient? Do they keep it? Are they going to raise rates? If they don't raise rates, expect the dollar to continue to rise, expect the euro to continue to depreciate, expect commodities like oil to continue to get whacked, all commodities for that matter, and expect it to have severe repercussions economically, domestically, internationally. Again, all this has to do with the East moving away from the dollar, the West wanting to preserve it, Russia setting up counterpoints to the World Bank and the IMF through the Eurasian Union, their version of the West's World Bank or IMF. All of this has to do with controlling that petrodollar trade, which, keep in mind, oil is priced in dollars. So very significant to watch these economic indicators moving forward this week. I, of course, will keep you updated. My name is Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face as usual. Please support our sponsor and click the link below.
Christopher Green, AMTV. And I think he's pretty on point on this clip. Some of the things he's talked about between Russia, Ukraine, and the Western world, I think have been pretty close, but I disagree with him on some of the points. But I think when it comes to the petrodollar, and I think that's where we should be focused, because this is something that's showing its face in Europe with the euro, in Greece. It's showing itself here in the U.S., where many people are going to gold, silver. I know, you go to a gun show anymore, that they rather trade with gold and silver for guns. A lot of times, if you're trying to work out a deal, if you're looking, let's say, just theoretically at a $500 gun, they'd be willing to trade you for $400 worth of gold instead of $500 cash, just for the simple fact that they want the gold. they feel more value in gold. And gold is going down right now, and that's definitely a good thing if you are someone like myself that sees gold as one of many good investments. There's never a perfect investment. Things are always going up and down, definitely when the Fed is manipulating things. But throughout history, gold has proven itself to hold value. And, silver in the world we're in right now is a very, very powerful metal, because you can, buy an ounce for a lot cheaper than gold, but the price of it goes up similar to gold. And it's used in, well, most electronics that you have silver, sometimes even gold. A lot of the high-end cords might use gold, but most electronics have silver in them. And it's always going to, as long as technology, I think, is around, silver will have a use, so will gold. And again, you can go back thousands of years and gold was looked at as valuable. Kind of detour off to let you guys know, take a second off. I urge everybody to check out the UCY store. UCY is partnered with Amazon, one of the biggest e-market commerce places, websites on the internet. And they have taken the time out to put together a collection of prepping, camping, and radiation gear. If you go to ucy.tv and click the UCY store tab, it'll take you right to the UCY store through Amazon. You get the same great deals, same great prices, and shipping offers that Amazon always offers you. And at the same time, UCY gets a little kickback from that to help pay for operating costs and expand what UCY is trying to do. And that's bring you voices from many different spectrums of ideology, but always with the key factor that you have freedom over your life, and you should get to choose what you put in your body and what you do with your property, what you do with yourself, and how to raise your own family. And we urge everybody to, prepare for the worst, but, strive for the best. And prepping, you can't always be prepared for everything. And you can't be prepared 100%. But if you prepare a little bit for, every type of situation, you better your odds for survival if any type of catastrophe should strike, whether it be a natural disaster. And if something like that happens, you can bet that Federal Reserve note isn't going to be worth anything. Now, you can prepare with seeds, you can prepare with ammo, guns, anything you can trade with. But another thing is gold and silver. If you go to antityrannynews.com/metal, it'll take you to Moggy Metals, and they have great prices and one of the best customer services I've dealt with, and they also accept Bitcoin. So if you go antityrannynews.com/metal, check out Amagi Metals. And when you buy something from them, we also get a kickback that helps bring you this broadcast and cover our operating costs. And it's always well appreciated. And, you know, going forward, I think that we're not going to see an immediate breakdown of society. But I think if we see Russia, China succeed in changing the petrodollar into one of their currencies or a joint currency, I think we are going to be seeing hard times. And, you know, you see the police abuse, you see things like that, and you think if it gets worse in America, when things start getting even more despairing for Americans, where do you think that's going to head? I think that once we get to a point where society starts falling apart, people start, you know, robbing more, when things like Ferguson are just nationwide, that you can't get away from race wars, class wars, um, robbing you know, becoming almost like Venezuela is, I think that you're going to see people that are prepared come together. I think the prepared people will come together to split off, and I think that's where you start seeing a civil war. And I think they have all this planned. They want a civil war, and I think race riots are going to be the one thing that they're going to use as a tool. You know, I thought racism was really dying off. You know, I thought people were smart enough to, you know, just judge each individual, you know, for who they are, the you know, judge them on the fruits of their labor. You know, who are they? And you know, I've always worked heavy manual jobs. I've never shied away from manual jobs. I like working with my hands. You know, I'm the one that likes to, you know, throw something over my shoulder and, you know, go to work. And, you know, it's taken a toll on my body. This past Sunday, Monday, I couldn't do anything Monday, basically. I was just laid up. It reminds me that I too have to take a break. I tend to push my body a little bit too much anymore without stretching or doing any of that. I think I need to start doing more stretches and making sure my body's limber before I start throwing 50, 100-pound things over my shoulder. But it reminds you that, you know, we have to constantly fight to better ourselves. And when you're bettering yourself, you're more comfortable. When you better your body, you feel better. I think the same thing needs to happen with our minds and our our souls. We have to start bettering them and stop buying into the divide and conquer. It's become something that I've been watching, and it's amazing people that buy into it. I don't have to agree with people, and I don't have to attack them or try to diminish them to make a point. I don't have to show up at, people's homes or work, or I don't have to diminish them. If you have a intelligent enough argument or ideology, then there's no reason to attack. Now it's a little different. What do you consider attacking? I would look at something like questioning someone, not attacking. If they voluntarily want to have a conversation with you and you question, what do you believe this? Oh, you believe that? Would it make sense if the roles were reversed? Would you see that as something that you would like? No. Well, can we be hypocrites and expect others not to treat us the way we don't want to be treated? That's not attacking. That's a conversation. That's a discussion. Even if it becomes an argument, when you try to, ambush definitely people that hold no power. Now, it's one thing when you go after a politician or someone that head of FDA or the head of the Fed or when you're questioning them, they are claiming authority over people. These people are to be questioned, and they like to try to dodge actual real questions. They'll take the scripted ones, but they don't want real questions from real journalists. But when you start going attacking people that hold no power, don't claim any power, don't want any power, but have a opinion and an ideology, don't attack them. Counter the argument or the opinion they have with one that you believe to be more intelligent. And we all have our flaws, and I can't say that I'm always perfect, but I think we have to make a conscious effort to change that. Definitely when it's people that believe in individual freedom, people that believe that we should have the right to prosper, that we shouldn't be robbed of our wealth to pay for things that go against our beliefs for the common good. Because most people go, I don't like paying taxes. I don't know anybody that says I like paying taxes. Why? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff they don't like that taxes get spent on. Well, in a free market, if government had to deal with the free market, that they couldn't rob you by taxation, which is basically extortion, then if you go, well, I believe that we need more national defense, and I like the job that they're doing, then I will voluntarily pay a percent to these people for that defense. And if they stop doing things that I agree with, then I no longer will pay them anything. When, you know, the FDA, you think the FDA would get much funding? I know people on the right, I know people on the left, and none of them really like the FDA. Now, people on the left would like to try to demand. Well, you can't demand. You can recommend. The FDA could be a advisory. We advise that companies start labeling if their stuff is GMO, non-GMO. If these companies are creating GMO, it's contaminating other crops. It's basically changing nature, and it's proven, then that should be able to be taken to court. And the people that have allowed this to happen would have to, you know, suffer the consequences for not, you know, being more thorough. That's the problem. No one's held accountable. Sue Monsanto. Who's Monsanto? I want to meet Mr. Monsanto. What's the company? Well, who's in charge? Well, you got the CEO, you got the board member. No, give me the person that is in charge. It's one of those things. It's a corporation. It's a fiction. Therefore, it's kind of like when you commit a victimless crime. Well, then who becomes a victim? Who shows up on the docket versus you? The state, the county, the city, the feds. Because it's their way around your chance to face your accuser. The so-called victim. Okay, I'm going to move on to some recent articles and some other things. Maybe. Give me a second here. I'm having a little issue. And I'm going to play a clip, and then I got an article to go with this. Not directly with it, but it relates to it. And this one is from We Are Change, Tendering Your Lawyer While Cop Blocking. In this video, Luke Rudowski interviews Orion Martin, co-founder of the Sidekick app, that will find the closest lawyer near you during police interrogations and live stream the whole ordeal. Sidekick is a new crowdfunding campaign that recently went live for the app Sidekick, an app which will give people a powerful tool in their dealings with the police state.
Have you ever been pulled over by police and wish you had a lawyer in your back seat? You'd want that, especially in Mexico, where federales literally drive around with machine guns here in Acapulco, Mexico. I am joined by O'Brien Martin, who's working on a project that will literally put your lawyer right in your car seat right next to you. Now, O'Brien's working on an Indiegogo campaign that is going to combine Uber with lawyers and cop blocking at the same time. O'Brien, can you tell us more about your project?
Sure. It's the Sidekick app, SIDEKIK, app.com. And basically, it's an app which combines several different features. So we're looking at audio-video streaming at the touch of a button. And also, if the app user wants it, then it'll initiate a video call so that within a few seconds, they'll be seeing and speaking to an attorney who will represent them. So let's say somebody gets pulled over. They just activate the app. Within a few seconds, they have an attorney there, and then they can just hold up the phone and let their attorney do the talking.
So if you get pulled over by the police, O'Brien's working on technology where you could automatically just hand your phone and your lawyer right to the police, and you could de-escalate the situations and make sure everything is done legally with live streaming capabilities to make sure that everything is recorded and put on record. That sounds amazing and fascinating. I mean, this looks like a very big, huge project. This seems, even on the technical aspect of live streaming, archiving videos, connecting a lawyer, sort of combining Tinder. It's like Tinder too, looking at the local locations where you are. Can you tell us just how do you plan on even going after this huge kind of infrastructure that you guys are building?
Right. And it is a very technical app. If I were to pick two apps that have these features, it would be something like Ustream or Bamboozer for the audio-video streaming, and then also the abilities of, say, Skype. So if you were to merge those two apps into one app, then you would overall have Sidekick, right? Except that Sidekick will be streaming that data to multiple secure servers, including the decentralized storage when MaidSafe comes out. And as far as how to tackle it, honestly, frankly, we had several software companies tell us that it couldn't even be done. But I just went around and just basically did interviews with different companies, and finally I found one where our mindsets met, and we just worked and figured out a way to actually combine those two technologies into one piece of software that works on Android, iOS phones.
Sit here, you don't worry.
Yeah.
So it's like combining Tinder, but with your lawyer, and Ustream and Bamboozer at the same time, which I find fascinating.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty complex set of features, and it is a complex app. But it can be done. You know, it's really just a matter of having the capital and pushing forward and working with the right team. So I found the right team. It's Zico, which is one of the oldest and most trusted software companies in the world. They're out of New Hampshire, actually. So we're working together, and they've done a fantastic job so far. So the whole first phase of the app is already completed. We had an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign last year, and we raised enough capital to complete the whole first phase. So that's all the wireframing, fluid UI, technical feasibility studies, the app graphics, and anybody who wants to see some of the graphics, they can just go to sidekickapp.com, and I have a video there, and then below the video I have some of the app screen graphics. They can read about the features of the app, and within a few days I'll have an FAQ up, because I get so many questions about this and that. How's that going to work? How's this going to work? And it just takes a lot of time to answer it. It probably couldn't be done in this one video. So anybody who's interested in getting those questions answered can go to sidekickapp.com. I'll have an FAQ up. And anybody who has any questions that I don't answer there, feel free to contact me, and I'll do my best.
I have a crap ton of questions that I want to get through, but really quickly, just tell us, when are you launching the Indiegogo, and what are some of the perks, and what is the amount that you want to raise?
Right. So the amount that we're going for the campaign is just enough to complete the second phase of the app, so it's a little over $50,000. As far as how much to complete the entire app, it's a range, because there are going to be certain issues that are going to come up during beta testing, and we don't know exactly how many of those are going to be. So it's going to be a range anywhere from $140,000 to $160,000 for the entire app. And as far as the Indiegogo campaign, we're launching our next one on March 9th, and the crowdfunding link on sidekickapp.com will go live on that day. So anybody who wants to, is interested in checking that out, can go to the click on the crowdfunding link on sidekickapp.com. It'll take them straight to Indiegogo. And we're also accepting Bitcoin. That's straight through the sidekickapp.com website. And because there's no transaction fees with Bitcoin, we're offering a 10% discount. Anybody who uses Bitcoin. And as far as the perk levels, I just took everything from the Indiegogo page, put it on the sidekickapp.com page, and discounted it by 10%. So, for example, on the Indiegogo page, anybody who puts in $100 is basically buying a subscription for 3 years to Sidekick, and they can have 3 years for themselves, split it up, one year for them, and 2 years for 2 other friends, and then the perk levels just go from there.
Obviously, people will need to buy this product to get connected with the lawyer in your local area to protect you in the moment that you do get pulled over. But O'Brien was just telling me how he had, a little bit of funding. He was thinking about hiring a video editor and making really professional videos to sell this. He said, no, I'm going to put this all towards the app, all towards the development. So that's why we're trying to help him get this video out to your friends. I still have more questions, though, because I'm really curious. All right, so you get pulled over by the cops. What guarantee do we have that there's going to be a lawyer present online, especially if people are paying for this product, paying for this app? What kind of guarantees do you have that a lawyer will answer a video call and everything will be live streamed?
Right. So what I did was I ran the numbers, and I figured out the ratio of how many app users one attorney can basically cover if they're on the Sidekick network, and the ratio is 1 to 400. So it's actually pretty large. And as far as I'm only going to allow as many subscribers as I think can reasonably be covered by the attorneys who are on the number of attorneys who are on the network. So as we grow, say each time that I get another attorney who signs onto the network, I will allow an additional 400 subscribers to get on, and that way I can always ensure that there are enough attorneys on the Sidekick network at any given time to make it so that people are covered. Right, because it's kind of random. I don't know when people are going to get called, so I need to have a conservative estimate on how many attorneys I have on the network.
Amazing idea. Is there anything else you want to kind of expand on with this project that you're launching on? There's a million questions. I know you're all going to answer them online as well, but anything that you think people should know, because this is still in development. It's not there. It's going to be a paid app. It's going to put a lawyer in your car. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'd say there's two things. One is that we're going to have a free and a paid version. So the free version will be audio video streaming to secure servers. So people who download it for free and use it for free, they'll have their data streamed to the same servers that the subscribers have their data sent to. And as far as the actual subscribers, we're only talking about a small amount. And this is the most common. If there's one thing I want to cover, it's this one question which I get most often, which is how can I possibly afford an attorney? But that's not actually how it works. I figured out a business model so that the initial consultation, the initial representation by that attorney is free. So an attorney might take, say, 20 or 30 calls, and most of them could be something really simple, like somebody gets pulled over for not having the light on their license plate, right? Well, they don't really need an attorney there. There's no lawsuit material for the attorney. But, however, the attorney's presence via the phone is going to help keep that situation from escalating into anything worse, right? However, out of the 20 or 30 calls, that attorney might have, 1, 2, or 3 where they have all the audio, video evidence they need of a breach of duty on behalf of the police officer, and then they have grounds for a lawsuit. So for the attorney, it's more like, casting a net, and they'll get 1 or 2 lawsuits out of it, and in that process, they'll help all these other people get legal representation when they need it. And those people will feel more secure because they know that they have a third party there, an intermediary who's representing them and doing their best to protect their rights during that situation.
Orion, amazing stuff that you're working on. A lot of people who don't have the funds, who are disenfranchised, always get screwed over by the legal system. But right now, with technology, with innovation, your daily traffic stop could equalize you to have the same power as everyone else and quickly get connected to a lawyer that will ease the situation, help you out as quick as you could get a Tinder date. Technology is amazing and beautiful. O'Brien, thank you so much. The link will be in the description below. I love this idea. Let's make it happen. And thank you again so much for watching. Share this video with your friends.
Okay, that was Luke from We Are Change. WeAreChange.org. We Are Change on YouTube. To kind of feed into that, it's basically, again, it's like Tindering a lawyer. It's adjust my mic here. It's something for maybe the cop blockers out there, people like that, and activists of all sorts. And there's a lot of times a lot of pushback from cop blockers claiming they harass cops. Same with peaceful street projects, which I think Antonio probably rightfully, in my view, gets most of the heat because he does aggressively engage when he talks to him. But most often, the cop blockers are just filming from a safe enough distance, not interfering. And this one from BenSwan.com. Video watchdog group keeps 17-year-old from charges of assaulting police. Washington, D.C., a 17-year-old from Brooklyn, New York, is no longer facing charges of assaulting a police officer thanks to a group of cop watchers. At a Puerto Rican Day parade, video of the incident caught on camera from multiple angles proved it was not the teen who assaulted officers, rather it was the teen who was assaulted. The incident took place at Brooklyn's Puerto Rican Day parade on June 8, 2014. 17-year-old Enrique del Rosario was part of a group recording the actions of police when his lawyer says police grabbed Rosario, slamming him against the gate of a closed store and began beating him with batons. And I'm going to play this short RT clip here about the incident.
Now to an exclusive interview. A 17-year-old from Brooklyn is no longer facing charges of assaulting a police officer because video of an incident between that 17-year-old and the officer proves it was the teen who was assaulted. This is video that changed the story. The incident took place at Brooklyn's Puerto Rican Day Parade on June 8th of last year. 17-year-old Enrique del Rosario was part of a group recording the actions of police when his lawyer says the police grabbed Rosario, slamming him against the gate of a closed store and beating him with batons. A grand jury decided not to prosecute Rosario for assaulting the officers in September, but he continued to face charges for resisting arrest and larceny until the DA's office offered to drop all the charges as long as he stays clear of the law for 6 months. But there is more to this story. Dennis Flores, founder of the neighborhood police watchdog group El Grito de Sunset Park, had led the way for several years to record police at these events. He was one of those who captured the police assault against Enrique del Rosario. And he joins me now live from New York to talk about it. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Tell me about the attack on Enrique del Rosario. What did you see? What did you witness?
We witnessed Enrique filming the police throwing a woman onto a sidewalk. And for that, a police officer bashed his head in, robbed him for his camera. And I say robbed him because the camera never showed up as evidence. It completely disappeared. But something that we had on video clearly, cops grabbed him, slammed him against the gate. A second officer named Elvis Merizalde swung a nightstick, missed. He cracked the head of another police officer with his nightstick and then charged him for assaulting the police. And because of that, since we formed a chain of cameras around Enrique to film this, we started getting maced, we got attacked, and we were pushed back. But because there were so many of us and so many cameras watching over each other, we outnumbered those cops, and the video and the evidence got out of there. And that's how we've been able to get that evidence to the hands of his lawyer, who went further with it and forced the district attorney's office to drop charges.
Now, as you point out, Enrique was actually there. He started videotaping a woman who was being pushed. And you mentioned that his camera was never recovered from the scene. You mentioned in an interview that you had done previously that it wasn't that the camera simply disappeared or was stolen. Police actually took that camera, and yet it was never admitted into evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct. You know, they thought he was by himself. And they underestimated cop watchers and the strategic way and the discipline that we have in how we film. We form a chain of cameras to watch over each other to make sure that if the police try to grab one camera, there's 20 more cameras behind that one watching the whole scene. And that's what, it helps us get out of those situations with evidence. If not, the evidence would have disappeared along with Enrique's camera.
What's interesting about this is Enrique was not actually part of your group, correct? He was there, he was a part of the event, but he wasn't part of your group, and yet he clearly benefited from this strategy that you all have put in place in terms of having a number of cameras recording any of these kinds of events.
Correct. It's because we've become accustomed to this. This is something that repeats itself year after year. After the Puerto Rican Day Parade in Sunset Park, police routinely corral kids around, assault them, press charges on them for merely waving flags, for continuing to celebrate the Puerto Rican Day. And, this year, like other years, we were ready for them. And that's what helped out once again. And this has happened year after year. There's been so many cases throughout the years of cops assaulting kids, but we've stepped it up as a community to police the police.
I would encourage people to go watch your video, which has been posted online, simply because as we even show it as you're talking here, it does not do justice to seeing the video with the full volume. I mean, when you see the way that the police are reacting to this, they're shouting, they're macing people who were standing by. They're using expletives. They're yelling at people using the F word as they're pushing people. And yet it doesn't appear, maybe it's just from my vantage point, but it does not appear as if the crowd is acting violently towards police. The police, on the other hand, are acting extremely aggressively toward the onlookers. Can you tell me about that?
Well, it's them criminalizing a community who merely is trying to celebrate, our culture. It's the Puerto Rican Day. We have a right to be out there waving our colors, blowing whistles, celebrating. And this is a criminalization of a people that's going on. It's historic. This is nothing new. And what they're not used to is a community fighting back. And we're doing it in a dignified way by watching them, by being vigilant, by observing, by exercising our right to continue to fight. And, this year, now we just got a permit application approved for a parade. So we're going to now, because of this incident, we're going to be out there parading. We're going to shut down the avenue. And it's forced the system to have to accept things by our terms. And as a community, we're taking back what's ours. This is our community. We're organizing ourselves. And they have to respect, because the world is watching what's going on in Sunset Park.
The name of the group that you've helped found is El Grito de Sunset Park. It is actually a police neighborhood watchdog group. I noticed in the video, not only from your camera vantage point of what you're saying, but hearing other people standing near you, there are a number of people with cameras, and they're all asking for police badge numbers. It seems like you guys have done a pretty good job of training people on what their rights are, what they have the right to record and not record, their rights not only as citizens, but to also demand identification from officers. Can you tell me about the training process that you put your people through?
Yeah, it's about disciplining. We're not there to provoke. We're not there to obstruct police. We're there merely to observe and hold them accountable when there's incidents such as this. And that's what it takes. It takes us as a community to hold the police accountable, because we know that they do a horrible job of policing themselves, of holding police accountable. So this is what the body cams are supposed to do, which we know is not gonna work. This incident happened right underneath NYPD surveillance cameras. So there were cameras that are there on the scene recording everything that happened, and the police department will not release that footage. So we're making that connection to the body cams. If we put out subpoenas, we put out FOIL requests for the police department to release that evidence that it's being recorded of police violence, and they will not release it, then what use are those body cams going to be? How will citizens have access to footage that's being recorded of them? There's public cameras recording the public using public funds, but the public has no access to it. That's a problem. And these are the problems that we're pointing out that exist, continuing to exist, and why the body cams will never work. What will work and what will hold the police accountable are community of citizens filming them, observing the police, and holding them accountable. So it's about doing that in a disciplined manner, not provoking, obstructing the police, but being vigilant and watching them. And that's what works, and that's what got Enrique's charges dropped.
Well, certainly, Dennis, I've seen you talk about this before, and I think you're absolutely correct in your assessment that if the public does not have access to NYPD cams that are already in place and video footage already being taken, why would we put any trust in body cams when they finally do take effect? Dennis Flores, founder of El Grito de Sunset Park, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me.
This is why cop blockers, cop watchers, peaceful street, this is why this type of stuff is important. We have to record our interactions with all government officials. Otherwise, we basically are relying on them to watch themselves. And we just know that doesn't work. I might have a new partner, trying to partner with this one website that I noticed they had things like dash cams for pretty cheap and free shipping. And I am in the chat room now. Would you, anybody out there, be interested in, dash cams for $20, $25, $30? I think I found a supplier I could partner with to bring you guys those type of deals, to be able to give you guys dash cam that access to affordable dash cams that work DVR. They do go up in range. They have everything from just a simple one camera DVR dash cam to rear view mirror dash cams, or multiple camera angle night vision. It's something that I've been looking into. Where can we find gear other than, if you, again, go to UCY store at ucy.tv, and Amazon does have some pretty good deals, but when it comes to protecting yourself, a lot of the gear, like things like dash cams, are usually pretty expensive. At least it seems here in America. It seems Europe has all kinds of dash cams. Everybody over in Europe seems to drive with the dash cam anymore. We get the people with their GoPros that cost considerably more amount than what I'm thinking about for dash cams, but we have to record our interactions to basically protect ourselves, and it's one of those things that if we allow police to continue to get away with things like this, that we're going to see more Ferguson type things, because it seems that we in the inner cities we have the pockets of poverty where there's a pocket of majority African American or black people. Then we have the pocket of Hispanic, Latino. Then we have the pocket of the white people that are in poverty. And they all feel like they're being centered out. But what they don't realize is, no, it's really all of poverty gets centered out. People in poverty that are kept down continue to usually abuse alcohol, drugs, when they don't feel like there's a way out, and then they're criminalized a lot of times for little things, and victimless crimes, things they put in their body. But when I interact with a lot of people that are in the lower poverty, it's alcohol and marijuana, and usually the people that do the marijuana, that are abusing it. I'm not saying just someone that occasionally does it, or maybe does it once a day or twice a day. No, I'm talking about the person that's just completely blown out of their mind, looking like the walking living dead. When those people start getting in trouble, and their work wants to start piss tested, instead of quitting, because they don't feel like, well, there's anything else to do. Might as well do drugs to have any fun. They try to find some other type of drug that doesn't stay in their system. And that usually leads them down a bad path. Alcoholics, well, they just learn to be good enough to go into work and get home and get completely crap-faced. And this isn't to someone that might do it because they like to have a beer, so when they come home, or a person that likes to go smoke a joint when they go home. These are to the people that feel like they're stuck in poverty, that abuse the hell out of anything. When it's not beneficial at all. It's these people that are always centered out, because they can keep them in a loop. And I think the more people recognize that are in those positions, the better off they could be to fight against it. And I think groups like this that go out there and record these interactions and don't let these people be abused by the system, that hold them accountable, are one of the most important things. We haven't had the opportunity in history the way we do now to use these things. When you look at it, we have the internet, we have live streaming, we have off-site archiving, we have all these tools, and we can have viewers that are watching. We can have alternative media networks that can pick up on something, and through Cop Block and Peaceful Street Projects, and whether it be We Are Change, Anti-Tyranny News, UCY, all the opportunities there are out there to hold these people accountable, and the ability to make it so instant, not just in a small area, make it instant throughout the nation, the world. We live in that age right now. Technology is there right now that we are doing this. And then you have things like this app that they're trying to crowdfund, and the ability to have a lawyer right there, the ability to protect your rights and things be archived, and we can't trust the body cameras. And I think I might try to do a video showing the difference between a body camera angle and someone filming a altercation, and have simultaneously filming it and show the difference of what might be seen. The ability to really manipulate things is very high when it comes to body cameras, and definitely when, well, if it does show it, well, maybe it was on or it malfunctioned, or we're just not going to release it to you. Oh man, we already deleted it. Sorry, accidents happen. Oh, we'll punish someone. Jeff, you got promotion. What? Yeah, we're gonna blame you for the missing footage, but we'll move you to another government department and make sure you got a good salary. It's just you have to take it on yourself. You can't rely on anybody else to do it for you. But when groups like this are formed that go ahead and do it, you see tools, and when more people are taking that upon themselves, the more footage out there to catch these things, the better off society is, and it keeps people that have been given the idea that they have this artificial authority over people, that somehow they're above the average citizen. It puts that ego in check when they notice that, you can't get away with this stuff anymore. If we can do it that way before it turns into things like Ferguson, I think we're better off. And one thing about Ferguson, if there was a watchdog group, that would have been there. If Cop Block would have been there. If Cop Watchers, Peaceful Street Projects, any of these groups, or just dash cams from the average citizen, cell phone footage from the average citizen that showed the whole incident, what different it could have been. How different, we already have the whole police chief resigning, all this going on, but how simple could this have been? There would have been no question. And yeah, there's always going to be the people that will ignore the facts. But it's harder to ignore someone that isn't actually involved in it, a bystander. You can argue, well, there's no good footage from the cops, but when a bystander does catch it all, and it's right there in front of your face, the majority of people will keep those others that don't want to look at facts and just want to be angry in check. Okay, let's move on here. thought I had one queued up. Should have had one queued up. Okay. How much time do we actually have here? Okay, we got enough time. This was from Abby Martin from Breaking the Set over at RT. Brainwashing American Youth. APAC 2015 and Cancer at the Dollar Store. I'm not going to play all of this, but I did want to play a portion of this.
Hard fact. The terrorists don't read Twitter. Who's right and who's wrong? It was a terrible thing to say, period. The mistake entirely on me. What we need is to question more and to keep it uncensored, real and raw. These words are hard hitting. You watching the net, but you need to tune in because what is said.
What is going on, folks? I'm Abby Martin, and this is Breaking the Set. So with federal education programs like No Child Left Behind and Common Core implemented here in the U.S., states all over the country are fighting back against rigid, standardized testing because it treats kids like robots. But Oklahoma State Representative Dan Fisher is trying to ban standardized advancement placement U.S. history classes for the state for a slightly different reason. According to a bill Fisher introduced just last week, AP American history just isn't American enough. Instead, he wants the curriculum to be based on 58 documents, including the 10 Commandments, a speech by George W. Bush, and three speeches by Ronald Reagan. Furthermore, Fisher believes that AP history only teaches what's bad about America, undermines American exceptionalism, and just isn't patriotic enough. Well, he makes a good point. Why depress young Americans about the Trail of Tears, Japanese internment camps, and the dumping of Agent Orange in Vietnam when it's so much more fun to study the glorious oratory of W's Mission Accomplished speech? And get this, the bill is actually passed through the Education Committee by an 11-4 vote, proving that the American education system is not meant to educate, but insulate impressionable young minds with the glorification of empire without consequence. Now let's break the set. It's known as the most powerful lobby in America. And next weekend, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, will convene in Washington, D.C. to double down on what officials have called an unbreakable bond with Israel. Confirmed speakers include everyone from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Congressman Barney Frank, to the President of the Czech Republic. So joining me now to discuss AIPAC and the power it wields here in the U.S. Capitol, I'm joined by Israeli dissident Ronnie Barkin. Thank you so much for coming on, Ronnie. Amazing to have you on. So you're planning on being involved in an event in the first week of March called Shut It Down AIPAC. Why did you guys choose AIPAC?
Well, AIPAC is definitely playing a key role in supporting American oppression of Palestinians through its support of Israel, which is carrying out decades-long oppression and also a regime that falls under the definition of apartheid, which is a serious crime in itself. And we know that AIPAC is playing a key role here, and therefore there is an event, a four-day event, starting February 28th, that will culminate on March 3rd, which will be actually the day where Netanyahu is due to speak to Congress.
You know, I want to talk about AIPAC's power in Washington here because, particularly in anticipation of next year's elections, I think it's really interesting that you have, Bernie Sanders, of course, aside. Elizabeth Warren is a really interesting one because every time she's confronted about this issue, she either runs away and hides in a closet or, most recently at a fundraiser, a supporter asked her to give her stance on Palestine. The organizers literally ignored the question turned on music and told everyone to start dancing. I mean, this is just one ridiculous example of this. But I mean, do you think AIPAC is really the greatest contributor to even progressives like Warren turning a blind eye to Israel's war crimes?
I think that AIPAC is a great symbol of what you were just referring to. We cannot have criticism of Israel in the United States. It is even worse than actually the criticism that we hear in Israel itself about the policies of the State of Israel. And I think that by AIPAC's strong lobbying, along with many other lobbyists, as we all know, this is what we see, that the moment there is any form of Jew criticism, then other forces are in place and they deny this Jew criticism.
But why do you think it's worse here than in Israel itself? I mean, that's pretty insane.
We can speak about Israel being discriminatory, even being an apartheid state in Israel, far more than we can do in the States. We hear such things on Israeli media all the time. Same goes for the call for boycott. In Israel, there are quite a lot of discussions about boycott, but here we know that they are actually appealing now to include measures in order to deny the boycott of Israel legally, to deny that possibility in the U.S.
So what are you guys hoping to achieve with the shut it down AIPAC?
I think that one very important thing that we would like to do is to connect the dots and also to bring in people who are supporting Black Lives Matter, people who, some black activists who have been to Palestine recently will be participating in the discussion, in the event that will take place here in D.C. And this is very important because we know that oppression abroad and oppression here has the same roots. And we know that there are the same, this inherent racism is being expressed both towards the people here and outside.
What kind of role does Zionism play in U.S. politics? Because, I mean, you have people like, I mean, it's obviously different than Israel. First of all, you have on one hand Netanyahu, all of the world saying all Jews come here, of course, pretending like there's no one already living there, right? Like everyone come here every time some event happens, just move to Israel, right? And then you have politicians here like Joe Lieberman, who are not Israeli, who are just Jewish, but they're Zionist. I mean, doesn't this only reinforce the point that Israel is an ethno-supremacist nation?
That is exactly it. Zionism is a movement that is a nationalistic movement, an ethnic supremacist movement that is using and abusing Judaism for its needs. And basically, the thing is that sorry, my English. Basically, what we have is that this ethnic supremacist movement is trying to say that if you are critical of and you're also critical of Jews, then you're an anti-Semite. That in itself is an anti-Semitic claim, basically equating all Jews with the support of the State of Israel, saying that if you're ethnically Jewish, then you must also be supportive of the criminal apartheid state. And I do not accept that, and we have to challenge that.
And I'm glad that you are challenging that. I mean, this is another really interesting controversy that's been brewing in Congress about whether or not Netanyahu is actually going to speak. Of course, he ultimately is. Why do you think that happened? What is kind of the young Americans' discontent, I guess? Is that a good sign that a lot of people were saying, hey, we don't want him to speak? I mean, ultimately he is, of course. But I mean, do you think that the trend is maybe changing here in America about that?
Things are changing dramatically. You could say that for 6 decades, nothing has been changing about Israel-Palestine. And for the past decade, everything is changing. Pretty much since the BDS campaign started, the boycott investment and sanctions campaign against Israel started. And 10 years ago, we would still hear talks about Israel being the only democracy in the Middle East. And then later on, they started talking about it as a flawed democracy, a democracy minus. And nowadays, we hear even John Kerry behind closed doors, he was asking whether Israel is an apartheid state. And we hear this type of change of discourse and change of perception of Israel all throughout the world. In the UK, there was recently a poll about which are the least favorable countries among UK public. And basically, Israel was second to last. It was regarded as better than North Korea, but actually in a less favorable place than Iran.
Wow.
That is quite striking.
That's pretty heavy. I mean, I know that you obviously are an advocate of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. I mean, you are here to shut down the event, the APAC event. Why BDS? Why go that route? We have about 30 seconds.
The BDS campaign demands the respect of free fundamental rights of the Palestinians, which are protected by international law and human rights conventions. And basically what we demand are the basic values of freedom, equality, and justice for all, not only for the privileged Jews, for everyone. So I come here as a privileged Israeli, Jewish citizen who is in solidarity with the underprivileged in their just struggle.
Thank you so much. Ronnie Barkin, co-founder of Boycott Within, an Israeli dissident. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. We have all kinds of groups trying to influence. That's the problem with public, even charter, and some of the private schools is those are influences that, in a way, you don't have control over. Unless you are the one that is the educator, you don't have control over every influence that might be given from a teacher. And it seems anymore the teachers really aren't even giving their take on anything. That might be better, hearing multiple opinions and ideas from different teachers. What we have is a centralized ideology being pushed by these organizations through government and, accepting federal money that comes with strings attached to sign on to things like Common Core, and being pushed by a lot of these different organizations to push a agenda. And it's also the agenda that they're pushing using government in other areas. And none of it benefits you or me. What it does is it benefits the power structure that they've been building and want to take advantage. Even the groups that, well, they didn't help build this power structure, but they definitely want to keep it and take advantage of it. And it's been a slow process, but again, I think that's what's also leading us to World War III. We got so much tension throughout the world and within the U.S. that it makes the U.S. even more vulnerable, because other countries know, hey, the government there isn't much liked. It makes it easier for them to push propaganda to get other countries to go along with them freeing the American people from their tyrannical government. And what does that turn into? It turns into things like, Iraq, Afghanistan, all this. And even in the outcome of that, Americans rising up to push out the invading forces would result in some of the most radical people probably heading up a lot of these groups that end up gaining power, and we just create another system under the guise of freedom. It doesn't really end up benefiting us in the end, and it's kind of that order out of chaos. And I think that's why understanding that we have to take responsibility for freedom. Take responsibility for ourselves is taking responsibility for freedom to enable a society to freely interact, the ability for us to help each other out, the ability for us to socially interact without having the excuse for a law enforcement officer to keep the peace, or a peace officer. When we take that upon ourselves, that, well, I might not agree with this person. I think this person lives a lifestyle I disagree with. Oh, I don't like how they drive. Whatever it may be, that you can still interact with that person. And when you learn that karma always ends up biting you in the butt, it really does, because if you become someone that's willing to stab another person in the back to try to I stab someone in the back to try to loosen the tension on yourself, or the focus that's being put on you, or stab someone in the back to further yourself, that tends to come back and bite you in the butt. Because when people notice that you're like that, then they don't feel a need to back you up anymore. They know that in the end you can't grasp, you know, we don't have to like each other. We don't have to you know, be friends. We just have to be able to be respectful to each other. And when you break that respect factor, then you lose that ability to know that that person's not going to turn around and point out your bads and your mistakes. And it's one of those things that it's really a sad thing when you see things go that direction, because the ability for people to work together creates a better atmosphere. It creates a better ability for you to be able to exercise a little freedom. When you try to tighten the reins around someone else to benefit yourself, what you find out is the reins get tightened around you too. And what you end up doing is ultimately hurting yourself and hurting the ability to have someone that'll have your back when you know you're in a pinch or something, because they know that you're willing to stab them in the back. It's something that when we realize that, whether it be in your home, your workplace, or just out in society, in your community, in your neighborhood, it's one of those things that when you can realize that, when you can spread that to other people, definitely people that might have something against you, or you know, we can sit here and argue about things we disagree about. We can try to hate on each other, or we can just recognize that we are different. This is something we'll have to deal with, but in the end, I'm going to make sure that I stand up for your rights and you stand up for mine, and we can live in peace. We can both benefit and prosper off of each other, even though we don't agree with each other. And I think a lot of libertarian ideology touches on that. I think a lot of religious theology even touches on that from multiple religions. And I think it's the most missed concept. And it's concept because we don't put it to practice enough. When a majority of society can put that to practice. And I think a lot of the reason why we don't put that to practice is because of our fear to approach each other. I think government and propagandists have put that into our head. A lot of neighbors no longer interact. Have you ever drove through some of these new housing additions, the suburbs? You know, a lot of these shows try to like, what is it, the housewives or whatever those shows are. Try to show, you know, how all these neighbors are actually, you know, I my um, mom used to, well, she lives in another one now, but she lived in a little bit newer one before, and um, everybody basically were caged in their house. Occasionally, you see a few kids out or someone washing their car. They might wave at you. Um, Usually, the older ones would, and younger ones kind of just ignored everything. But for the most part, everybody stayed in their house. There wasn't any social interacting with each other, and I think that fear has been put in us and propagandized into us. You know, the see something, say something, where, you know, if your neighbor is acting weird, if you see something, say something. And they put this fear in you. And I think that they really also point out the differences between you and your neighbor. Is your neighbor a liberal? Is your neighbor a conservative? Is your neighbor a racist white cop? Is your neighbor a drug dealer? Is your neighbor a gangbanger? Is the house next to you a grow ops? Is it a meth lab? Oh, by the way, you know, something that is being used, I know, here in Indiana quite a bit, across the Midwest, down south. I'm not sure where else it's being used. I'm sure all over the country, but possible meth lab resulted in a no-knock raid. There was marijuana found in the residence. They have been booked and charged with a public nuisance. Hold on, I thought you raided the place because it was a suspected meth lab. There was nothing about meth, or one. I think there was one where they raided and they just basically said that a house was unfit for the child, and something to that extent. And if anybody knows what they've done, which I've talked to people that have had it done to them, no, not raid and possible meth lab or whatever, that has resulted in holes knocked in walls, ceiling torn out, windows busted out, door off hinge, can't even be another door without replacing the whole door jamb and everything. Things ripped, things thrown. They make the place inhabitable, and it's just, again, we need to start taking the filming upon ourselves. We already kind of understand that we live in a society, a world that we're being watched. We're constantly being watched. There's cameras cameras everywhere. Shouldn't we say, okay, the cameras are already watching it. How about we start watching these people? And people are like, we don't need no more cameras around. There's cameras. You don't have control of those cameras. Take it upon yourself to, you know, even your cell phone is plenty. I'm gonna partner up, I think, with this one supplier and try to bring you guys some the ability to get some dash cams for pretty cheap. They look like a good deal. I'm going to try to get a few different ones and test them out. That way I can give you my own review on them. So, you know, but just when you see something that, you know, the interaction with officers and all of this, you take that picture. Just hit that video button on your cell phone. Because in the end, you might help someone out. And karma, again, you know, karma is a two-way thing. Screw someone, they might screw you back. You help someone, they might help you back. You're not going to get 100%, but I like to think that I'd probably have more people that would have my back than would go against me, because I'm not someone to abridge all that. You have to be a friend of society for society to ever be a friend of you. That doesn't mean doing things and giving everybody what they want. It means standing up for someone's right and ability to exercise their right to succeed. You should not be penalized for trying to start up a company, but you are. They say it's to help the environment. It's to pay for, you know, testing and regulations and to make sure the earth isn't being hurt. But does that actually really happen? Does it stop these companies from doing that? Do big corporations have to deal with that? Doesn't seem so. Okay, we got about 14 minutes left here. There was one other clip I did want to get to, but I don't think I have the time. Oh yeah, I do. I didn't think it. Or I thought it was longer than that. This from alibertarianfuture.com. alibertarianfuture.com. Jesse Ventura is thinking about running for president as a libertarian. And he was on Buzzsaw. Or it was talking. Yeah, Buzzsaw. Okay. alibertarianfuture.com. And this comes from Buzzsaw.
So you've chosen to go off the grid now, and I think a lot of people have a question as to what happened to your ideas about potentially running in 2016. Is that totally out of the picture?
No, they're still looming out there, because naturally, if I ran, I would need ballot access, and the logical place to get that access is the Libertarians, and they hold their convention, I believe, June of 2016, and you simply got to go to their convention and win the delegates, and you're their candidate. I could do that next year. I'm also a person that's thrifty. When I ran for governor, I only spent $300,000 to become the governor, where in 98, the Dems and Repubs spent $12 million combined and lost. So to me, and a candidacy for me would be quick. It would be because I'd need to bolt onto the scene, I think. And so, the Libertarians would be the way to go. But then again, I'd need permission from them, because, Sean, if I do run, I'll tell you right now what I will run on. I will run on this simple premise: to challenge the American people to elect the first president since George Washington that does not belong to a political party. So I'd want that okay to say I have the libertarian endorsement, their ballot access, but I am not a member of a political party. And I believe you could almost win on that alone with public sentiment, because look at the last election. The last election, only 36% of the people showed up. That means 64% are potential out there for me. And you know I'm going to steal some from the 36. And I've got the majority waiting to vote for me. That's the positive look at it. 64% of the people wouldn't vote for a Democrat or Republican, but maybe they'd vote for me.
Well, I think that's an enticing option. I personally, as a voter, I would love that. Would you take, for example, I mean, have you talked to Ron Paul at all? I know that at one point it was sort of a discussion about potentially doing a ticket together. I mean, have you discussed with him at all?
I don't know if Ron, he just won't leave the Republican Party. I've told him if he'll quit the Republican Party, I would have ran with him as VP, anything like that. Cynthia McKinney's interesting. If you know Cynthia, she's looming out there. She would be a very interesting person to run with. I'm very respectful of her and think she's wonderful.
Yeah.
She's the only woman who voted against every war proposal while she was in Congress. And what was unique about it, she was on these committees. She got to write the minority report by herself because she was the only person that voted no. So she's in the congressional record now, her opinion solely against the Iraq war and all the rest of that, because she was the only one with courage of that whole system out there who would vote against George Bush's war.
So, I don't know what you think. Possible. Jesse Ventura, would you think he would do well off? I think Ron Paul, I don't see him attempting to run again. Could be proved wrong, but I don't know. I think he's doing his thing. He's got multiple projects going on. And I think he feels that even though he might be healthy, that it's becoming too much for him. If he won the last one, he would have been perfect timing. If he would have, won 2 terms last time he ran, I think that he would have been okay. But to jump into it now, I think he's got too much on his plate how it is. But you never know. Things don't surprise me anymore. If Jesse ran, I think that just the sheer fact that he has some libertarian ideology and some ideology that leans more towards the left and the right. He's really it depending on what you're talking about. He has ideologies from all spectrums, but it's all based on what he believes freedom is, and I don't agree with him on everything, believe me. But I think that he would have a chance to make numbers, change things. I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I don't know what would truly go on, but I think that they're creating so much of a horse and pony show to even for him to be able to win. You have the whole what is it? Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. Then you have Elizabeth Warren, and you have Donald Trump actually making a serious go for it. I mean, they will they will completely divert people's attention away from any real candidate, I think, because the mainstream media does play the major role in what people, definitely the people that buy into anything, well, they're buying into it because all they ever do is see mainstream media. They don't, they're the ones that believe nothing on the internet is true. So it's like the complete opposite of not everything on the internet is true. It's nothing on the internet is true. No, half of what you see on the internet is true. The other half is complete BS. And then you probably could pick off another 5 to 10% off each one of those and put it in a gray area that there's half truths. But it's one of those things you have to do the research. You have to look at all sides of the issue. You have to cipher out the BS from the reality and the truth and the facts, and create your own opinion and look at does reality with my own eyes, my own ears, and what I see around me reflect what the same. Maybe your part of the country and your community is different than what you hear and see about maybe in Ferguson. We don't live the same lifestyle. We have to take things, and that was one thing about having different states and the states being able to control themselves, is that you could have the different cultures, different pockets that you respected. Other people, though, that other people that came in your community, you didn't. The concept was that they were coming to the community because they liked that type of atmosphere, or they wanted tourism, or we just don't have that respect. You get people that move into a community anymore, and it's like they want well, I don't like how that neighbor has cars in his driveway, so we should start a petition. Really? Did you pay for that property? Why? I don't like it. Suck it up. He might not like your ugly siding. Should he start a petition? Solves nothing. Again, karma. And we have to make more of a effort within society. And I think it's possible. I think that we can slowly change society when we change ourselves and we change our interactions and we change how we interact with each other becomes a movement within itself. It creates a need for that change because it creates a situation where people feel more comfortable and want to be a part of that. Okay, we're coming up to the end of the broadcast. I want to once again let you guys know about the UCY store, partnered with Amazon. Same great deals. Go to ucy.tv, click the UCY store tab, and you can shop through Amazon. And UCY's put together a collection of great prepping, camping gear, and radiation gear. And one of the best selections I've ever seen. And when you buy through Amazon, through that link, you're also helping UCY get a kickback to help cover operating costs and expand the network. And I also want to tell you about one of my favorite seed sources for my non-GMOs, and that's My Patriot Supply. If you go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot, they got some great deals going on right now. Springtime's right around the corner, and if you want to get all your seeds ready and non-GMO, go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot and check them out. And they also got things like the Life Straw. So check them out. And thank you all for supporting UCY and this broadcasts and all the other ones here on UCY. Stay tuned for more great broadcasts coming up after this. Take care.